Through 32 years of working on Home Show Radio, we've received thousands of questions on the air and from HomeShowRadio.com. That much time on the air means we sometimes get similar questions. Lucky for you, the Home Show Radio team has compiled select videos to help answer your most frequently asked questions. GFCI.
GFCIs.
GFCI.
GFCI.
GFCIs. GFCI. GFCI.
The GFCI.
This is GFCI.
GFCI. GFCI or GFCI. GFCIs.
GFCI.
The GFCI.
Sebastian from Westfield has a question about sizing at GFCI.
Yeah, he's trying to choose the right ones, Tom. And Sebastian writes, my home was built back in 1981. Way back in 81. Back in 81.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I'm installing GFCIs, and my breaker box has a switch stamped 40 amp for some of the 15 amp outlets, and the wiring to the 15 amps appears to be white. So Tom, Sebastian wants to know, should he use 15 or 20 amp GFCIs in those outlets?
The 40 amp's probably a main breaker. It sounds like a sub panel, and you're going to have more than just the white wire. You're going to have a white, a black, and a ground in most cases, or at least a white. Well, in 81, it would have a ground too. With a GFCI, just match the breaker 15-15. It's very simple.
But in this case, he's got that 40 and
he's got 50. A 40 amp that controls several 15 amps.
Oh, so you're saying like 40, right within the breaker box, even it could be that they're underneath it.
Yeah, it's a 15 amp that's being sent to the plug.
Okay.
So you match the 15 amp. It's probably a 14 or number 12 wire. But as far as that 40 amp, that sounds like a main breaker to cut off all the 15s.
Don't
worry about
electric.
The 40.
Don't play with electric.
Yeah, and if you don't know, call Right Touch Electrical and call an electrician.
You know, I will tell you, of all the do-it-yourself things, when people say, do you think we can do this? Not electric. It'll kill you.
It can, and so will a saw if you cut your hand off and not get to the emergency room quick enough. Bottom line is, if you're not sure, always call a professional. But these things,
the chances of a saw like going rogue on you is probably,
I don't know. I've seen some pretty bad things. Google YouTube.
He's seen some things, folks, and he talks about them.
I have all mine.
He talks about all he's seen in these answer videos. Find more of them at HomeShowRadio.com under the Ask Tom tab.
Here's one of our certified Home Show pros. Tools, tools, and more tools. I know I've got plenty, and I buy mine at Circle Saw, the certified Home Show pro of tools. And if you need tools or help with your tools, or a little bit of both, go visit Circle Saw, the certified Home Show pro of tools. George from Havelock, North Carolina has a question about a power puzzle.
Well, he has a GFCI in his garage. It keeps on tripping, Tom. Oh. George writes, I only run an aerator and a power head on it to make salt water. I don't know why he's making salt water.
I have no idea.
We're not judging you. Says the house is new, and I've only been here 1 year, so I'm not sure why it's faulting out like this. Tom, George wants your suggestion. What do you think the problem is?
I want to know what the salt water is. I think it has to do with a fish tank.
I think we want to hold back the answer until you tell us what you need salt water for.
Yeah, I bet she has a fish tank.
I'll bet you're right.
But what happens is the aerator and this little motor gizmo you have don't work well on GFCIs. The fact of the matter, you don't want to put a refrigerator or a freezer or a ceiling fan, anything that has a motor load, because the startup on the motor sometimes will trip that GFCI because the power is a little off on motor startups. So I have a feeling if you took that and plugged it in somewhere else that wasn't on a GFCI, everything would be fine. And that's what I would do, is change circuits for that particular process for your salt water.
So the GFCI, when it senses that sudden draw or some deviation from normal current, is that what makes them trip?
What goes in and comes out, it's got to be exactly the same. And if you lose a little bit on a motor startup because it's a hard startup,
it's a spike,
it just trips the GFCI.
Got it.
That's why you never put a freezer in your garage on a GFCI and then fill it full of moose heads, because you're going to come home and they're going to be melted one day. You're not going to be pretty.
That's a perfect waste of moose heads.
Yeah, moose heads.
Because we have 2 freezers in our garages full of moose heads as it is, right?
Ew. I don't know. I haven't looked in your freezer.
What do you use moose heads for?
I don't know. Some people freeze body parts. A friend of mine has a bobcat in his freezer. He found on the road dead.
A bobcat. I was thinking like a bobcat, like a. Okay.
I wish that was it.
That'd be a big freezer, like a big walk-in drive-in freezer with a
drive-in freezer.
Not that kind of bobcat.
Michael from Tucson, Arizona has a GFCI frustration.
Well, the problem is he put in replaced an old 15-year-old one, and the new one's giving him trouble. Mike writes, both are tripping with no load, and when I first try to reset, the breaker will trip. He says resetting the breaker and not resetting the GFCI, all the outlets that are loaded to the GFCI are fully functional. Only when I try to reset the GFCI does the breaker trip. So Michael wants to know what's causing this.
I don't know, but what I suspect is, and this is when you get an electrician out if it's not something simple.
Yeah.
Because this could be a sign of something really more serious in the breaker box itself.
Right. The GFCI is telling you have a bigger problem.
You sometimes can buy a GFCI and they're bad. I would go and, if you can, take it back or replace it with a new one to see if it continues. That's what I would do as a homeowner if I was going to be working on the system. If it continues to do it and you're sure you put it together right and didn't cross the line in the load, then it's time to find out if there's something with that breaker or in your breaker box.
So step one, check to see if the GFCI is bad itself.
And the only way to check it is to replace it with another one.
Okay.
You can't really stick anything in there.
And if you put another one in, you have the same problem, call an electrician.
Yeah, but make sure you install it right, because if you cross the wires on those things, they get all screwy on people.
People get screwy when you cross their wires.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same thing.
You have your load and your lines. You got to be careful. Here's what one of our certified Home Show pros has to offer. There's always a good time to think about your chimney. With heavy rains, it could be leaking. Maybe you want to do a new glass front. Gas logs. Have an inspection done once in a while. Make sure it's safe. Make sure the birds aren't getting in there. There's so many things that can happen when you have a chimney. But we have a certified Home Show Pro of chimneys. It's Lord's Chimney. They're certified chimney sweeps, and they know what they're doing. So no matter what time of year it is, call Lord's Chimney to get your chimney fixed no matter what your problem is. Chandresh from South Jordan, Utah has a question about a GFCI Grinch.
Well, he's having a little trouble installing his Christmas lights.
Oh, no.
And he's singing Barroom Dora and all that.
Oh, no.
Remember that song?
Yes.
All right.
The heart grew and grew.
Christmas. Okay, anyway, Chandresh writes, they tripped my GFCI, his Christmas lights. He says, so I reset it, and the next day, my GFCI tripped again. Now I can't reset it. He says the red light stays on even after he presses the button 10 times. He says, I pressed it too many times, and now it tripped my main panel.
Uh-oh.
So he went back, turned the thing on, and red light comes on. Still no luck with the GFCI. What can he do, Tom?
Oh, I think the GFCI went bad. I think it just needs to have a new one. I would take that Christmas tree light system, and I would plug it into a non-GFCI system to see if it works. If all your lights are fine, it doesn't trip a breaker, then that's probably that GFCI went bad.
I hadn't thought of that. There could be something in that Christmas light that's legitimately tripping the GFCI.
Oh, absolutely. Or it could be dew in the morning or water or something that gets in there if it's not watertight too. Or watertight connections. People put 100 plugs together and you don't tape them and they get some moisture in there. It'll trip it every time.
Okay.
Or they're just really old and it's time to buy new ones.
Or it could be a green guy on a sled from the hill behind your house.
Yeah, with a little dog.
That could be it. All right. You got questions? We'd be happy to answer them for you. Send them to us at HomeShowRadio.com. Remember, you can see more videos here, and love it if you'd subscribe to our channel.
Chris from Chicago, Illinois has panel problems.
Well, his Christmas light went out early. And
that kind of panel. I was
that kind of concerns him. No.
Okay.
In Chicago, but it went out early. He says the next morning I saw the power was out to the 6-plug strip that we use, and I figured the GFCI, the cord, he says, had gotten wet or something, and the GFCI tripped. But he says I could not reset the plug early. In fact, I found these scorch marks on the plug.
Yo.
And the right prong of the cord. Here's a closer look at it.
I can see it.
Yeah, yikey wawa. So anyway, it's a covered outdoor box, he says, and the outlet that was not plugged in still had the light on and seemed to be working. So Tom, Chris wants to know if the plug is bad or could it be something worse?
Either or. I don't know yet. That's why when you get into something like that, that's when you need to get a licensed electrician out. I don't care, because that is a fire hazard. For some reason, the breaker's not tripping. It could be a lot of different things. It could have been a bad GFCI, but the breaker still should have tripped with something like that going on. So I have a feeling that it's something inside that box. You've got some shorted out wires or something, probably like a loose neutral or something of that nature. But get an electrician out to check that one, because that's a dangerous thing when you see those scorch marks.
Even if it was a problem with the lights themselves, the Christmas lights themselves.
Breaker should have tripped.
Or the GFCI should have tripped. One of them.
Yes. And maybe the GFCI burned out. That's
Okay.
why it's not working anymore.
Okay.
But the breaker should have tripped. And we get into, I don't know what the age of your home and stuff, but they have these old breaker boxes that are out there all over the place, Federal Pacific being one of them. And what happened is those breakers will not trip. And so they're just letting the juice go and go and go. And that's where people have problems like that. So I want you to get that checked out by a pro.
And while you're at it, have them take a look at your panel.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, through the whole thing.
You bet.
All right. Everybody's saying, well, they're going to sell me something. Well, you know what? It's better than burning your house down.
That's right. That's right. Just think about it when you're writing the check for that panel or the plug. Consider the alternative: standing huddled under a blanket on the curb across the street, watching them put the fire out.
And then living in 6 months in a Motel 6. No, you don't want that.
Well, he could be doing well. It could be a double tree. You don't know.
Okay, whatever. Still.
But we do know is that if you need help, we can vend the answer right here.
And now a word from one of our certified home show pros. You don't want to mess around with electricity. You can get hurt. You can get killed. Somebody else could get hurt. You don't want that. Call a licensed electrician. Call the certified home show pro of electricity. It's Right Touch Electrical. They'll take care of anything from light bulbs you can't reach to maybe a breaker box that needs to be replaced or anything in between. Get it done right. Get it done by a licensed electrician. Call the certified home show pro of electricity. It's Right Touch Electrical. Stephen from Magnolia needs GFCI tips.
Well, he's installing one, Tom.
Okay.
So Stephen asks, how do you properly wire a circuit with one GFCI outlet and multiple ordinary outlets to be protected on it?
Well, what's going to happen is you're going to have the power coming in and the power coming out of the GFCI. So the power coming in, you have to put it in the right two wires, and the ones going out, just continue the circuit down, and it'll protect them all. But it's pretty hard for me just to say that and you get a clear picture. Every package that a GFCI comes in has an instruction page. Look very carefully at the line in, line out. Those are the two areas you're going to see, and wire it as if you're protecting down line. They'll have different options for you on the instruction page. And if you're really not sure, this is when you call an electrician, because it is not difficult, but it's not something I can just say, put the black wire, the white wire, and boom, you got a ceiling fan hung. It doesn't work that way with a GFCI because there's different ways to wire it, but your instruction sheet will tell you.
At least it's not red wire, blue wire.
Then you get into 3 ways and 4 ways.
Oh,
so.
no.
So I say instructions, electricians, if you're not sure, be careful.
It's one of those. We had somebody who wrote us a couple weeks ago about problems with GFCI, and it turns out that somebody hadn't read that diagram right. So,
That's right, and they actually blew out their neutral. It burned up.
Yep.
So you got to be careful.
You got to be careful with that stuff.
Have questions on home improvement? We're here to help.
Visit HomeShowRadio.com and click on the Ask Tom tab and enter your question. We'll answer it on Home Show Radio or right here on YouTube.
Since we post daily, make sure to subscribe.
Once you subscribe, hit the bell besides the subscribe button.
We will ring your bell when we post new videos.
In a good way. So come to think of it, though, we may have already done a video for a question like yours, so browse through our hundreds of plus videos to see if there's one that works for you.
Remember, you can get help live, too.
Yeah, check out Home Show Garden Pros on Saturday from 7 to 9 a.m., then Home Improvement Help with Tom, Saturdays 9 to noon and Sundays 8 to 11 a.m. Central Time.
Listen in on Sports Radio 610 and online on the radio.com app. Just look for Sports Radio 610.